Welcome back to day 9 of making a VR game. Today we're gonna give this robber a little bit more life. We need to have him look around the room and also detect if he sees the player. So what we have here is we have these points. I'm keeping it at 0, so it's halfway through the ground, but we have these points that we can place wherever we want, and he will look right at those points when he walks into the house. So here I put one at the player. When he locks in, he's going to look right at us, and you'll see that this is something that can be adjusted in real time, of course. So if I move this object, he's going to look right at it. Now his legs stay the same, his idle animation stays the same, but his upper body and his head rotate to look at whatever object we set. In this case, it's this game object, and so he can look right at the player, and that's going to be important because we want. If a robber's breaking into our house, the first thing they're going to do is look around to see if anybody's in there. And if there is, there's going to be trouble. So let's get into some trouble. Here we go. Here we are where we left off at day 8. And so, yes, let's get this guy moving. Well, he's already moving, but let's get him looking for the player. So right now when he starts off, he's going to run into the house. He's just following his navigation path, and this cube is the navigation target. So let me do this. I'm going to move the cube just to the doorway, and we'll make the enemy, we'll make the robber open up the door, but for now I just want him to run to the door, and then from there I want to make him check to see if he can see the player. And for some reason there's got to be a problem here, because he gets to his location and he never goes back to idle. So in day number 8 I made a big mistake on this guy's script, and what I did was I said for the animator, set the speed float variable to the my nav mesh agent dot speed, and dot speed is actually this value, which is 6, and it's always going to be 6 unless I change it, here to 5 or something. But that is not his current speed, that is his maximum speed, and I should know that by putting my mouse here, and it says maximum movement speed when following a path. So the correct value here is the my nav agent dot velocity dot magnitude, and this is his current speed. So if I set that, then the guy is going to get to his destination, and then he's going to stop. So to clear things up here, I'm going to get, these just need to get deleted. They were testing with interactive objects, but I guess for now I'll move them out here. And this one I might as well turn off the mesh renderer. And it could get deleted probably, but yeah, let's just remove that. It has a box collider, so it's a trigger. Well, it's turned off at the moment, so he's just gonna run to that point and stop. Now I want to make him look for the player. What I'll do is I'm gonna make some points of interest for the guy to look at. And so I'm thinking when he walks in, I'll make a point of interest, here at the door. I'll do one maybe over here so he turns his head this way, and I'll make one towards this end of the room, and if he looks at those 3 or maybe a couple more spots, then he should pretty much pan his head across the whole room. So in level 01, I'm going to create an empty object. And call it points of interest. And it needs to be at 0, 0, 0 because that's where all master parent objects need to be at. And the 3D object, I really don't need a cube. I just need a transform, so I can say create empty. And let me find out where that is. Here we go. And I'll start off with one right over here to look look over into that corner of the room. And we'll call, I guess we'll give it a name. And so just so I can get an idea of what exactly I want to be scripting, I'm just going to duplicate it here. First of all, it looks like I want to change the rotation once he's at that destination. And once he's changed that rotation, I'm going to want to rotate the head, which I actually can't do at runtime because the animation is overriding it. And so, luckily, this character has a couple of animations down here. Body down, body left. These actually aren't animations, they're poses. Body left, body normal, body right. So let's go for the body right and the body left pose. And what we might be able to do here is go to the animator and create a new layer, which is gonna, I'm not sure what to call it yet, so I'll say body control. And the body control, first of all, it's gonna go into an idle state where it just plays the normal animation, whatever's going on the base layer here. For example, when he's standing at the door, it is the idle animation. So this isn't really idle. We'll call it none. Whoops. You gotta press tab or something to save that. Okay, so none. And first of all, I guess the first one we'll do is turned to the right. So I'm going to create a new empty state. And I might go into a blend tree. But for now, let's use a state. And I want the body to the right. So we'll call this turn right. And we'll make a transition to turn right. That means we're going to need a new variable, something. But I'm gonna use a bool for now and call it turn right. So if the turn right boolean is true, whoops. It's going to go to the turn right motion, which is going to turn the body. So let's just say if my nav agent dot remaining distance is 0, so he's made it to his destination. Then we'll set my nav mesh, the animator, the animator, my anim dot set bool, and turn right. Set that to true. And let's see what that looks like. We're probably gonna we'll need to get some okay, so it's trying to make that transition. And it looks like it has but it's not doing anything here. So if we go to the animator and we go to the layers, and so let's turn the weight up here. So I see he's going into T-pose. Which means that we're going to have to get a mask here. So let's make a mask. That's going to go into the animations folder. I'm going to create a new folder in here called masks. And we'll create a new avatar mask. This will be chest and head. So the chest and head. We don't want anything on the arms. Now I know the animation didn't include the legs, but I just want the chest and the head. The legs may turn. So let's assign the, well, let's go back to the animator, and on the body control we're going to set the avatar mask to the chest and head. Oh, it already had one here, body, but I'll use mine. And let's hit play again. And the reason why the turn right is flashing so much is because update. It's running this every single frame. That's no good. If this is the actual code, we would want to do some check, like if my anim dot get bool turn right is false, then we'll set the bool to true. That way it doesn't sit there and run the transition. It's still doing it. I guess that's just the animation plane. We could probably set the speed to 0 so it doesn't do anything, and it wouldn't matter, I don't believe, because it's just a pose. So if we go back to the body control and change the weight here, he turns to the right. Now again, before that would happen, we should rotate the, in the script we need to rotate this guy around so he's facing this way, and then from there we can do a weight on the second animation layer between 0 and 1 to get that guy to look left and right. Now here we're in the turn right, so if we trigger the turn left, we'll have to go back to 0 on the weight, and then so turn left to the right is going to be a full weight of 1 all the way down to 0. Then trigger the animation state into the turn left animation state, and then we'll go back up to 1 again. So he'll turn the other way. So I got to make a new state here for the turn left, and the motion there is going to be the body left, and we'll just set the speed to 0 so it doesn't try to play an animation. It just sets a pose, and we'll make a transition over to there. That's going to be the perimeter, of course, of turn right with the Boolean, and turn left. And like I said, I'm not sure. I might move these two over into a blend tree. But for now, we'll set it up like this and see how it works. Turn left is true. Go over here, and it should be able to make a transition over to nothing and nothing, and that would be, I guess, at the moment, if the turn right was false, and this one would be if turn left was false. And you should be able to transition from turn right to turn left. So let's add in that would be if the turn left was true. And going over this way would be if the turn right was true. And to make sure we do the code right, we should make sure that the turn left is false there. And we should make sure that the turn right is also false. So now we can go between turning left and turning right, depending on whether or not we set a Boolean value, and then we'll have to set the body control layer's weight. So I'm going to write that script and let's see what it looks like. So on the box here, or just the game object, I'm going to get rid of the box collider. It has no purpose. And the cube mesh. So it's just a game object now, and it's called navigation target. I could give it a little icon so I can see it in the inspector, something like this. And then I know where the position where the guy's going to run to. And I'm going to add a new script to this. We'll call it navigation target. And the navigation target, let's actually just make the navigation agent rotate to match the rotation of this object. So at this point, it doesn't even need a script. The rotation is 0, 0, 0. So let's say when the guy, which is going to be the robber controller, when he gets to the target, we don't want to set the bool. Actually, that's first of all, eventually we do, but for now, if he gets to the target, we want him to rotate to the same rotation that the game object has, that this one has. So I'll try itween.rotate 2, and this takes it's going to be rotating my own game object, and I can make a hash table of arguments, or I can just pass in a vector3 rotation and a float time. So let's say the vector3 rotation is going to be the target's rotation, or Euler angles. and we'll go over 1 second. And we actually only want to rotate in the Y because, well, let's see why. Let's see why. Oh, I guess his rotation is 0, 0, 0, but yeah, let's see what happens if this is 180. He falls over, and we might want that. So sure, we won't. I was thinking we should only set it for the Euler angles dot y, so that it's just rotating the character around the y-axis. But I guess we might want to have him like this. I guess we might want to have him lay down, perhaps. So we'll just keep that as is. So it should be 0, 0, 0. But this one I think needs to be 180 on the Y. So if I change that to 180, I can kind of manually decide where he's gonna. There we go. And he rotates right where I want him to go. Now we just need to make him look. And I wish this had some sort of rotational marker, so we could really see which way it's pointing. But without a custom editor script, we can't do that. So that's okay. He's going to go through here and he's going to rotate to the 180. And after that, we need to make him look to the right and look to the left. So, and I don't want to put that right into the update function. That doesn't make any sense. And I only wanted to run this rotate to function one time instead of running it every single frame. Let's make a private bool called at target. So if he's at the target or at a target, this will be true. So we're going to say if the navigation remaining distance equals 0, at target is true. Otherwise, he's not at the target, so at target's going to be false. So we're going to say if the remaining distance is equal to 0 and at target is false. And that should only fire once. To make sure, I'm going to do a debug.log. And we'll say set, what are we setting down? Or yeah, rotate. And we should only see this rotate message one time when he gets directly at the target for the first time. So I'm going to go to the console, clear it out here, and let's hit play. No, he is rotating every single frame. So let's look back at what the heck was I thinking. If the remaining distance is equal to 0 and the target's at target is equal to false, then set at target to true. As soon as this is true, then this whole statement is false because at target is equal to true. So it's going to go to this else statement and it's going to set at target to false. So we'll have to move that in one if statement here. So we'll say if at target is equal to false. And we want to change at target to true, rotate the player, and we're going to log it there once so that we know we're only running these lines of code one time. And then any other time, if the nav mesh agent's remaining distance is not equal to 0 at target, is going to be false. There we go. That's what we wanted. We want one rotate call there, not one every single frame. So it's getting to this point because we are at the remaining distance is 0, and then it's checking if the our f at target is false. So now that's only firing once. The other thing we want to fire one time is a function to look left or to scan the room. So first of all, let me just make a function to rotate the head. So we got public void rotate right, and we want to set the my animation controllers boolean. So set bool, and if I remember right, that's turn right, and we want to set that to true. And then the other thing that we have to do is we have to change the animation layers weight. So my anim dot, I don't know what layer. We could set the layer weight right here. So there's an integer for the layer index. It's got to be layer 1 because it's the second one, and then the float weight. So if we just say 1F there, it should do an instant full right turn head, and that's not what we want. We're gonna have to lerp that value. So, but just to see if it works, let's go ahead and call the rotate right function when he gets to the his destination, and see if it's gonna snap that head into place. There it is. It did even almost lerp it a little bit, probably because the animation layer or the animation controller. But we have a little bit of a tricky situation because originally I was thinking that to have them look at points, and I was going to put these points in. Now it's just a matter of maybe I don't want to do that. Maybe I'll just do a predefined turn left, turn right, where that's kind of where how we make them scan the room to look around. Otherwise it's tricky because we got these points. And we have to translate this point down here where I made the corner of the room point, and let me give that a inspector dot so I can see where it is. But he's supposed to look at this position, and I'm not sure. It's going to be a little bit tricky to turn a weight value of 0 to 1 into where that point is. So if we play and he goes and he turns and he looks to the right, then he's not looking directly at that point. We just had him turn. So to look directly at that point, this layer is going to be at some value of like 0.91 here. And we'll have to do a little bit of math here to figure out how we take his forward rotation based on the angle it is over to this object, and figure out what that angle is, and then translate that angle into a 0 to 1 value that we could pass into the body control weight value. I'm going to figure this out, and I'll be back. This is really cool. Check it out. If the guy runs in, he's going to look at this object right here, the corner of room that we had. And if I move it around, he looks directly at this object. And how that's working is it says it gets the Vector3 forward direction, which is transform direction for Vector3 forward, and then it gets the Vector3 to the other object, which is, you know, the vector over to this object. So that's navigation. Let me pause right here and explain where this position is coming from. It's just this object, but where does this position come from? It comes from the navigation target script. The navigation target script is that script that I made that I didn't use for anything, and it's on the navigation target here, this one. And you'll see that I made a public transform array called points of interest. And so I just put one in there, and I put this corner of room right here into that. So when he gets to his navigation target here, the navigation target is tied to specific points of interest. So when he walks up to this point, then this point says, okay, look at this spot, look at this spot, and look at this spot. And so that's why this transform is coming from this object where it's saved as an array. And so on the robber controller, anyways, this is just a long and complicated way of saying this object. So it's the navigation target script that I call nav target, and I say target get component navigation target. So the nav target dot points of interest 0, and I know it's 0 because I've only made one of these. And so you can see here element 0 is center of room. So back on the robber controller, get the point of interest 0, and then later I'm going to do a for loop through all of the points of interests. But get the get the point of interest position and subtract that from my transform position. And then we can determine the angle between the angle between him and here. And so that is Vector3.Angle forward. This Vector3 and that vector. This returns a 0 to 90 value. So, or actually it's a 0 to 180 value of whatever the angle is as I circle this object around. And so because the animator body controller needs a weight, you're going to see that I'm setting the weight here. So as this spins, we're setting the weight on this layer in the animator. So that takes a 0 to 1 value. You can watch it go from 0 to 1. You actually can't because I have to click out of it, but it needs to be a value of 0 to 1. So because this returns it returns 0 to 180, but I only care about 0 to 90 because right here is 90 degrees and then here is 0. So this one would be negative 90 essentially. And then back here we're going to go into the 180s, negative 180 and positive 180. But I don't care the 180s because that's behind me, and this guy's only going to turn up to a 90 degree angle. So I only care about 90 degrees here and 90 degrees here. So I've done, after we've determined the angle, I divided that by 90 so that we're going to get a 0 to 1 value between 0 to 90. And then I clamped it to 0 to 1. So I did mathf.clamp the angle to 0 to 1. That because it goes to 180, again, it's say it's back here behind him, and we divide, and it's at 180, and we divide by 90. That's going to return 2, and I don't want to put a 2 value into the layer here So I clamp it to 0, 1, so the value will always be between 0, 1. And I've set the bool to turn right. We need to fix it so it can turn right and left, but and then I've set the layer weight. Now we just need to make it work for the right turn, and we'll be ready to go. Okay, so we should almost have this working, except on the animator, because these animations don't play at all. They're never going to get to their exit time, so we need to make sure that all the transitions have the has exit time unchecked, because it's never going to get to the end of playing that animation, because there is no animation to play. It's just a pose. So now it can freely transition between these at any time. And let's see what happens when the guy runs into the room. He should look at this object called corner of room. And there's a little transition in between where it's going back to none. Let's see if we can fix that. Maybe if I go to this, I should take off this false check on these, because it should be able to transition between the left and the right without going back into the none animation state. And so maybe it's transitioning down there because it's this value is getting set. So let's not allow it to go back to the none at all. Actually, well, we're gonna want him to be able to go back to none. It's gonna, I guess it's gonna be a different variable that we set that's that we don't have yet. So there's no way for him to transition into the none, but we probably want to have that just in case we want the guy to be idle and not looking to the left or the right. However, if he is looking to the left and the right, we want him to be able to smoothly go between the left and the right. So he is pausing when that transition happens. Let's look at the transition here, because it has a fixed duration of 0.25. Let's just make that completely 0. Yeah, or we just turned off the fixed duration. But I've also set the transition duration to 0% between the left and the right. So now I'm hoping it should have a nice smooth. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. A nice smooth transition between the left and the right. And he's going to look at this game object wherever it is. So this is going to wrap up. This is going to wrap up today, but we got a lot done, because now we can control exactly where he looks at just by passing a transform in. And let me go over the script though to see where we're at here. So this is the Robber controller script that we've been working in, and when it updates, it sets the float to the speed to the velocity magnitude, of course, not the speed. And so this is going to get modified and moved off into functions most likely. But for now, to easily explain how this how we're tracking, how we're making this turn happen by setting the weight to 0 to 1. Like I said before, we get the forward vector, we get the vector to the other object, and here is something new that I had to add, which is the Vector3.Dot product, which I've called the direction, whether it's to the left or the right. So I'm getting a dot product of the transform to the right to the other object. That way I get a positive or a negative number based on whether or not the other object is to the left or the right of the player. Because when I determine the angle here, the angle just turns back a value of 0 to 90. So whether it's on this side or this side, it's still a positive 90. So we need to know whether it's on the left or the right side, and we do that with the dot product. So if this is a positive number, it's on the right, and if it's on the left, it's and if it's negative, it's on the left. So we get the angle at 0 to 90. We divide that by 90 so that we get our 0 to 1 value, and that's the weight that we're going to pass in for the animation layer. We clamp that to between 0 and 1 because the animation layer goes between 0 and 1. And here we say if the direction is greater than 0, then the animation set the bool to the turn right and make sure the left is false, and so that turns him into the right pose. And if the direction is not greater than 0, so it's less than 0 or 0, then go into the left. Now here we may check. I don't think we really need to check for a 0, but we will need to eventually give the ability to move this animator back into a none state when the player's not looking to the right or the left. But we can set the turn right, and we'll set the turn left to true depending on whether the object is on the left or the right side of that guy. And then we're just going to set the animation layer weight to the weight value, which is a 0 to 1 value, which actually is the angle between this object and this guy. So now I can take this corner of room and put it, for example, right at the VR player. Where is he anyway? He's at this text object. Whoops, I've moved it somewhere I didn't want to. Okay, let me try that again. We're going to move this right at the VR camera. So when the guy walks into the house, he should look right at us. Hello, mister. Okay, so we could, of course, easily add these multiple objects around the room so that when the robber walks in, he looks at one object and then looks at another and then looks at another as he's scanning around the room. And, of course, if the player is there and the robber sees you, you're in big trouble. All right, this is going to wrap up day number 9. And I think on the next episode, we're going to be giving this guy the ability to actually see the player, so he can actually see me. But the first thing here was to get the head rotating, get him looking around the room, and give the ability to just place game objects and say, look at this object, and he'll turn his head and look at it. So now that we have that, we're ready to add some detection, to some sight to him so he can see or not see the player. That's coming up on the next video. Thank you for watching. See you guys soon.